Welcome back to the Season Starter Show. I am David Marcel, and I am glad you are here. Today we are talking about something most of us do not want to talk about, the health scare, the diagnosis that arrives on an ordinary Tuesday. The phone call from a friend telling you that someone your age, someone you hung out with or worked alongside for 20 years, is gone. We are going to talk about what happens after that moment, not the medical part. The part that happens inside a man's chest when he really realizes that his time is not infinite. I want to start with a scene that a lot of you will recognize. You are sitting in a small room. The paper on the exam table crinkles every time you shift your weight. A doctor walks in holding a folder, and before they say a single word, you already know from their face that this appointment is going to be different from every other appointment you have ever had. Maybe it is your heart. Maybe it is a number on a blood test that used to mean nothing to you and now means everything. Maybe it is a lump that was not there 6 months ago. Whatever it is, in that moment, the room gets very quiet, and a clock that you did not know was running suddenly gets very loud. For a lot of men, this is the first time in decades that they have thought seriously about their own mortality. We spend our 20s feeling invincible. Our 30s and 40s get eaten alive by career and kids and mortgages and the sheer velocity of being needed by everyone around us. There is no time to think about dying when you are busy driving carpool and closing deals and mowing the lawn before the neighbors notice you have not done it in 3 weeks. Then you turn 50, then 55, then 60, and one day the doctor says a word you were not expecting, and the velocity stops cold. I have talked to a lot of men about this. Some got the scare themselves. Others got it secondhand, watching a friend go through chemotherapy or standing at a funeral for someone who was supposed to have another 20 good years left. Either way, something similar happens inside them. It is not despair, at least not for long. It is clarity, brutal, immediate clarity about what actually matters and what was just noise the whole time. Let me tell you about a man I will call Frank, because that is not his real name. But his story is real enough that a lot of you will see yourselves in it. Frank spent 32 years running a small manufacturing business. He worked 6 days a week for most of his adult life. He told me once that he could count on one hand the number of his son's baseball games he actually attended, because there was always an order to fill, always a client who needed something by Friday. Then at 58, Frank had a heart attack in the parking lot of his own factory. He survived it, but he told me something that stuck with me. He said the ambulance ride was the first time in 30 years he had nothing to do but think. Frank did not become a different person overnight. That is a myth we tell each other, that a health scare flips a switch, and suddenly you are a monk who meditates at dawn and never raises his voice again. What actually happened to Frank was slower and more honest than that. He started noticing things. He noticed that his son, now grown, still flinched a little when Frank raised his voice, an old habit from childhood that Frank had never even realized he had caused. He noticed that his wife had a whole inner life, hobbies and friendships and worries that he had been too busy to ask about for years. He noticed the sound of his own house in the middle of the afternoon, something he had almost never been home to hear. This is what I want you to sit with today. A health scare, or the loss of someone your own age, does something that almost nothing else in a man's life can do. It cuts through the noise, all the urgent things that felt so important, the emails, the arguments about politics, the grudges we carry around like they are load-bearing walls in our lives. All of it gets quiet for a moment, and what is left standing is what actually mattered the whole time. So what do you do with that clarity? Because here is the danger. A lot of men get the wake-up call, and then, once the doctor says the test results are fine, or once the funeral is over and life goes back to normal, they let the clarity fade. They go right back to the old velocity. I do not want that for you. I do not want it for me either, if I am honest. So let us talk about how to actually hold on to what a moment like this teaches you. The first thing is this: stop treating your health like an inconvenience. I know a lot of men who wear their refusal to go to the doctor like a badge of honor. Tough guys do not need checkups. Real men push through pain. I understand where that comes from. A lot of us were raised by fathers who never once mentioned the word therapist and would rather have driven themselves to the hospital than admit something was wrong. But that toughness, if we are honest with each other, has cost a lot of good men years they did not have to lose. Getting your blood pressure checked is not weakness. Going in for the colonoscopy you have been putting off for 3 years is not weakness. It is the opposite. It is a man taking responsibility for the fact that other people need him to still be here. The second thing is harder to talk about, but I think it matters more. A health scare forces you to ask what you actually want the rest of your life to look like. Not what you were supposed to want, not what your career told you to want, what you specifically want to be true about your life when it is over. Frank told me that after his heart attack, he started leaving the shop at 4:30 in the afternoon most days, something he had never done in 3 decades. His business did not collapse. His son told him years later that those extra afternoons were some of the only real memories he has of his father from that whole decade. I want to be honest with you about something. Not every health scare ends with a man making changes. Some men get the diagnosis, get scared for a few weeks, and then slide right back into the same patterns. Because change is hard and old habits are strong, and nobody wants to sit with their own mortality for longer than they absolutely have to. I understand that instinct. Looking straight at your own limited time on earth is not comfortable. But here's what I want to offer you instead of comfort. I want to offer you honesty. You are going to die someday. So am I. That sentence is not meant to depress you. It is meant to wake you up, the same way Frank woke up in that ambulance. The question was never whether you have limited time. You always did, from the very beginning. The question is whether you noticed in time to do something about it. Let me talk for a moment about watching a friend go through this instead of going through it yourself, and in some ways it is even harder to process. When a man your own age gets sick, or when a man your own age dies, something happens that a stranger's death never quite does. You cannot help but do the math. If it happened to him, it can happen to me. He was not older than I am. He was not less careful than I was. He just drew a different card. That thought is uncomfortable, and a lot of men push it away as fast as it arrives, because sitting with it feels like tempting fate. But I would encourage you to sit with it a little longer than feels comfortable. Let it ask you the question it is trying to ask. If your friend had one more good year, what would he have done with it? And what are you doing with yours? I think a lot of men in their 50s and 60s are living with a quiet, unspoken grief about time that has already passed. Years spent at the office instead of at home. Relationships that went stale because nobody made the effort to keep them alive. Hobbies and passions that got shelved decades ago and never picked back up. A health scare does not give any of that time back. I wish I could tell you it did. But what it can do, if you let it, is change how you spend whatever time is left. That is not nothing. In fact, for a lot of men, it is the most important shift they ever make. So here's what I would ask you to do this week. Schedule the appointment you have been avoiding. The one you keep telling yourself you will get to eventually. Make the call today. Not because I am trying to scare you, but because eventually is not a real day on the calendar. Second, think of one relationship in your life that has gone quiet. A son, a daughter, an old friend, a brother you have not spoken to in longer than you would like to admit. And reach out this week, not with some big dramatic speech, just a phone call. Just, I have been thinking about you. Third, ask yourself honestly what you have been putting off because you assumed you would always have more time. Then go do one small piece of it this week. I want to close with something Frank said to me that I have not been able to shake. He said the heart attack was the worst day of his life, and also somehow the best thing that ever happened to him. Not because he wanted it. Nobody wants a health scare, but because it gave him back a kind of attention to his own life that he had lost somewhere in his 30s and did not even realize was missing. He told me I got to live the last stretch of my life awake instead of asleep. That is a gift most of us only get if something forces our hand. My hope for you today is that you do not need the scare to get there. My hope is that you can borrow a little bit of Frank's clarity right now, today, without having to sit in that small room and hear the doctor say the word that changes everything. Let me tell you about another man, someone I will call Ray. Ray was not the one who got sick. His best friend since childhood, a man named Troy, was the one who got the diagnosis. Pancreatic cancer, caught late, the kind of diagnosis that does not leave much room for hope. Ray told me that for the first few weeks after Troy's diagnosis, he did what a lot of us do. He kept busy. He sent a card. He told himself he would visit soon, once things settled down at work. Once he had a free weekend, 3 weeks turned into 6. 6 turned into 2 months. By the time Ray finally cleared his schedule and drove out to see Troy, Troy was too weak to really talk for more than a few minutes at a time. Ray told me that drive home was the longest of his life. Not because of traffic, because he kept replaying every excuse he had made to himself over those 2 months, and none of them held up anymore. Work would have survived without him for an afternoon. His schedule would have bent if he had actually tried to bend it. What he had really been avoiding, if he was honest with himself, was watching his oldest friend get sick. It was easier to send a card than to sit in a room with something that painful. Troy passed away 11 weeks after his diagnosis. Ray got to see him 4 times in that whole span. I am not telling you this story to make you feel guilty about something in your own past. I am telling you because Ray has become, in the years since, one of the most present friends I have ever watched in action. When another man in his circle got sick 2 years later, Ray showed up the very next day, and he kept showing up every single week until the end. He told me once that he made himself a promise after Troy died. He said, "I will never again let my own comfort decide whether I show up for someone I love." That promise came from grief. It came from regret. But it changed the way Ray lives, and I think there is something in that for all of us, whether the health scare belongs to us or to someone we care about. Here is something else worth naming plainly. A lot of men in their 50s and 60s are carrying old wounds with other men in their lives, brothers, fathers, former business partners, friends who drifted away after some argument that, looking back, does not even seem worth the silence it caused. A health scare has a strange way of putting those old grudges in perspective. When you are staring at your own mortality or watching someone you love stare at theirs, the argument from 15 years ago about money or pride or who said what at a family dinner starts to look very small. I have heard more than one man tell me that the thing he regretted most after a health scare was not some big failure. It was a small, stupid grudge that he let eat up years of a relationship he could have had. So, let me add a 4th thing to the list from earlier. Along with scheduling the checkup, reaching out to someone you have gone quiet with, and taking one step towards something you have been putting off, I want you to think about any grudge you are still carrying. Not to excuse whatever happened. Some situations really were serious, and reconciliation is not always possible or even wise. But for the smaller stuff, the stuff that is really just pride wearing a mask, ask yourself honestly whether it is worth what it is costing you. Most of the time, it is not. I also want to say something to the men listening who are in the middle of a health scare right now, not remembering one from the past, but actually living inside one. Maybe you just got a diagnosis. Maybe you are waiting on test results this very week. If that is you, I am not going to pretend I know exactly what you are feeling, because every man's fear is his own, and it does not help for me to guess at it. But I will tell you this, the men I have talked to who came out the other side of a scare, whether the news ended up being good or bad, all said some version of the same thing. They said the fear never fully goes away, but it stops running the whole show after a while. What takes its place is a strange kind of gratitude, sharper and more specific than anything they felt before. A cup of coffee tastes different. A grandchild's laugh lands different. Even an ordinary Tuesday starts to feel like something worth noticing. I think that is really what this whole conversation comes down to. None of us get to choose whether we eventually face a health scare our own or someone else's. That part is not up to us. What is up to us is what we do with the clarity it hands us. Frank left work at 4:30 instead of 6. Ray stopped letting his comfort decide who he shows up for. Neither of them became a different man overnight. They just started paying attention to the life they already had, instead of the one they kept assuming they would get around to eventually. I want to leave you with one more thought before we close. There is an old idea, and I do not know exactly where it started, that the two most important days in a man's life are the day he was born and the day he figures out why. A health scare has a way of forcing that second day to arrive sooner than we planned. My hope for every man listening to this is that you do not need the scare to figure out your why. My hope is that you can sit with what we talked about today, borrow a little bit of Frank's clarity and a little bit of Ray's regret, and let it point you toward the people and the priorities that actually deserve the years you have left. Take care of yourselves this week. Get the checkup you have been avoiding. Make the call to the person you have gone quiet with. Let go of the grudge that is not worth what it is costing you. And pay attention, really pay attention, to the life you actually have, not the one you keep meaning to get around to. This has been the Season Starter Show. I am David, and I will see you next time. God bless.